Hey, welcome back to another video. I want to talk a little bit about the reality, especially around this time of year, and especially early in the process, how the holidays can be used kind of as a weapon, but effectively what I mean is that oftentimes during this time of year, people are hit with restraining orders, you're denied access to your kids, and it can really catch you off guard. Some of you may already be dealing with that because we're already way into the holidays. Typically what happens is before the first chunk of holidays comes up, a plan is orchestrated to get a temporary TRO right before the holidays. Because of all the backlogs, it's really hard to get in. So there's a good possibility that some type of false allegation can come up. And as a result of the court system erring on the side of caution, because they don't really think about, they're like, well, somebody probably wouldn't submit that if they were lying, so they go ahead and let it go, or worse, well, not worse, but they set a court date after all the holidays. So I think one of the hardest parts about dealing in a toxic divorce with a toxic ex is they don't have any compassion. They're not going to look at the situation and feel empathy for you. Well, they're definitely not going to feel empathy for you or feel empathy for the stress they're putting their kids through. It's all about whatever their story is in their mind. Now, I would venture to guess that if you were to run into your ex, or if you were you ran into that random person and you didn't know the story, after a short bit of discussion, you would think that the other person is a piece of crap. And, oh, it's so sad that this person is in this. And this goes for both men and women. This isn't a singularly focused tactic. It's bizarre. And there's a bunch of problems with this. The first one is just dealing with the false allegations and the stories, or even just having the other person start screaming abuse whenever you're walking out feeling like you just were in a bomb blast, and then the other person is skipping around, with all their limbs, and like, oh my God, I was in a bomb blast too. And you're like, what? You threw the grenade? It's one of those things where the first part about this is you're just completely blindsided. The second part about this is that you're like, what? This is what's happening to me, not the other way around, right? And then the third part is you're dealing with what you're being denied access to. Getting kicked out of your home. Like I said, if there's a TRO or TPO, which temporary restraining order, temporary protective order. And then you're sitting there just, your whole world has been ripped upside down. And it's done during the holidays, right? It's like it's for effect. And sometimes people think, and you look at it and you're like, oh, well, this must be about me. This must be about getting back at me. And I think the reality of it, and this took me a long time to really come to terms with, is oftentimes this has nothing to do with us. It has to do with them. It's not that they're like calculating, picking how to hurt you the most. That's just like gift with purchase. What they're doing is they're looking at a situation going, well, I don't want to deal with having to deal with the ex for the holidays. So, there was this time that they did something that might be considered abusive. So I'll just say that. And then I'll get custody and they won't have any rights to it. And then if they try to do anything, I can call the cops and get them arrested for violating this temporary restraining order. So it's like a checkmate. And then if you do anything else, it just helps them achieve their goal. And I think it's an important pivot whenever you realize that, when you realize that this isn't necessarily about you and hurting you. It's about them getting what they want. And I used to struggle with that for the longest time. I'm like, all these decisions have to be intentional. Nobody would just do this willy-nilly or make this crap up. But whenever you look at it, whenever they're trying to do what they want to do, co-parenting with you, having you in the picture is a burden. Because they have to coordinate with you. They don't get to make all the decisions. And the reality of it is, for the most part, they probably made all the decisions on most things when you were together. I think that's pretty damn common. That you get into a situation to where they were running the show, you were just, just facilitating, making sure that things were cruising along. Maybe every once in a while you'd say, I really think we should do X instead of Y, and they would potentially agree. Or what often would happen, what I think often happens, is they say okay, and then over a short period of time, they convince you to do what they want anyways. And it's really hard. But let me get back to roll this back into the holiday thing. If you are dealing with this situation right now, if this year you're living in that, the bomb's gone off, you're shell-shocked, and you're like, what the hell? You have to take a deep breath. You have to realize that these things do occur, and you have to be very deliberate about your actions. I would encourage you to not constantly be texting or trying to get with the ex or sending them emails about how messed up this is, how it's hurting the kids, how it's wrong, why are you doing this? All those things, which a lot of people do. They get into that trap where they're like, well, this is just crazy. If I could just reason with the person, they'll calm down. The problem is if you start engaging in those type of activities, they will typically use that to show now, on top of everything else, you're harassing them. You're sending so many emails. You're blowing up their phone with text. And, God forbid, if you start saying inappropriate things or angry things that you're documenting, you're sending them via email or you're sending them via text, and they walk in, they amend their protective order to show all this vitriolic, angry communication, it just makes things worse for you. Sending one, I wouldn't even send one, but if you feel like you have to send something, you need to do it very sparsely, like once, or use your attorney to send the information so that you have some protection. And I'd even be careful with the sending one time, because if you say anything out of line, or that could potentially be misconstrued, you're setting yourself up for just more problems. So then, it's like, well, okay, then how do I deal with this? You deal with this by, you try a couple things, like I said, work with your attorney to see if, like, hey, okay, there's this crap going on, but can I see the kids for a couple of hours during the Christmas break or on Christmas Day? And what I would say is, even if you're like, hey, I've always seen the kids on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve or whatever it is, and that's what you want, be willing to compromise. Just say, hey, during the break, I'd like to see the kids for a couple hours to celebrate Christmas. They're probably going to say no, right? They'll probably ignore it. But do that. And like I said, do that through an attorney so that you don't have, you don't set yourself up. And then just don't take the bait. Don't drunk text. Don't get hammered and grab your phone and start sending text. Hey, Julie, why can't I see the kids? And then start going down this diatribe of how horrible they are or whatever. It may all be true, but you just got to really think about what you're doing. The second part of that is remembering that more than likely, if you don't make any mistakes, this will get resolved and the time will get figured out. I don't know how many people who've been members of this channel who have had success, who have been denied access, dealt with some form of alienation, but were ultimately able to get the courts to finally say, okay, this is ridiculous, and change the time. And it's just, just remember that this isn't the rest of your life. Now, I mean, again, if you make mistakes, if you say something threatening, or you get really angry, or you do something to where the ex and their attorney can take that to the court and show that this right here is an example of why this protective order needs to be in place, then you're potentially dealing with a situation to where it continues, and then you're dealing with a lot more problems. Take a deep breath, slow yourself down, find the support you need, vent to people you can trust. I know it hurts like hell, whenever you go from having a family, or you're having this idea of the way things were supposed to go in the future, and it all blows apart. It's not easy. It is not easy. I mean, I'm not exactly the most social person. I'm definitely more introverted. I like being alone. But I'll tell you that in the beginning parts of this, it was not easy to be alone. It was very stressful. It was very stressful to just kind of be like, wow, this is my life. And, fortunately, my attorney, I didn't even think about it. They wrote in that whoever doesn't have the kids for Christmas break gets them on Christmas Day. Thank God they did that. I know I've talked about the problems that caused in the first year of this, but I mean, it helps, right? It's like, okay, so even if I don't have them for the entire break, I get to spend a few hours with them on Christmas Day. We open presents, we hang out, eat something. Don't have really enough time to go anywhere or do anything, but it's okay, and that was helpful for me. It's just, and I'm just throwing that out there because that's something to think about, right? Because a lot of times people will do these things where, this year so-and-so gets the entire break, and because then you'd have nothing on it, or you split them up. I mean, that probably would have been the best case scenario is, I know I'm switching into a little bit later, but it's like, okay, for the break, on the even years, so-and-so gets them for the first week. On the odd years, they get them for the then that switches. Don't think and don't feel that the pain you're feeling right now and the circumstances that you're dealing with right now are going to be forever. That's what it's going to be going forward. Slow yourself down, take deep breaths, and focus on the long term, which I know that's hard. I know when I was in that mode myself, the idea of thinking long term just gave me more pain because I'm like, oh my God, everything's been destroyed. But things do get better. And as soon as you get to the point to where you actually are starting to see your family again or your kids again, then you can start working on those relationships. You can start undoing some of that parental alienation. So hang in there. This could be a tough one, but don't let it break you. Don't let them push you to the breaking point to where you just torpedo yourself. So on that, hang in there. A lot of people have gone before this and have been okay. Make good decisions. You'll be okay. All right. I'll talk to you later.